Our guest today is author, coach, teacher, Victoria Reynolds. Today she's going to be talking about her marvelous book, Transcending Fear. This is a must-read for anyone who has ever experienced fear. Oh yeah, that means every single one of you. This is a great book. Please welcome Victoria Reynolds. Victoria, Transcending Fear, the Journey to Freedom and Fulfillment. Tell us about this beautiful book. What brought you into writing this book to start with?
Oh my goodness. What brought me into writing this book? You know, I didn't intend for it to be a book. I really didn't. It was my own therapy, and I was trying to figure out how to recover from my midlife crisis. And I started listening to my intuition, which in the book I refer to as my inner therapist. I call it my inner therapist in the book because it was a term that I figured people could relate to. Because I honestly believe that inside of every single one of us is everything we need to heal ourselves. We know what is best for us. And we all have an internal therapist, call it intuition, still small voice, voice of higher self, whatever we have a name for, there is an inner knowing that knows how to heal us, and that knows how to repair our life, and that always knows what's best for us. So I started listening to my inner therapist, and the words in that book were actually little messages that came to me throughout my process. Sometimes they even came to me in the shower, of all places. They came to me in the shower, they came to me on my walk, they came to me, I had a notebook on my nightstand, I had a notebook in my purse, I had a notebook in the bathroom, I had notebooks everywhere because these little messages started coming to me about how to heal my life. And I didn't actually intend for it to be a book until I had decided I had these notebooks all over the place to put them into the computer because they were getting out of hand. And I started to realize that there was a pattern. And literally it was like putting together a jigsaw puzzle, which is not normally how books are written, but the book basically manifested itself as this amazing little puzzle. So
it is an amazing book, and it unpuzzles us. It's interesting you did it while you were in the shower. That's a good place to clean up your entire life anyway, mentally, emotionally, and etc.
Yeah.
And I love this book, and you have begun it with gratitude. Tell us about gratitude.
Well, gratitude is a life-altering experience. So for me, growing up, gratitude was, something that you gave lip service to, or technically knee service to, about a dozen times a day. Call it groveling or whatever we want to call it. The only time I ever expressed gratitude was in some form of prayer, and it never really meant anything other than lip service. What's really interesting is that I remember as a child my grandma complaining that none of us ever even said thank you. It was not, this idea of being grateful was not even a concept in my life when I was growing up, except for in prayer. And so what happened is after I had my midlife crisis, or what I call my midlife rebirth, I was trying to figure out how to repair my life, and one day I was out walking, and I saw this amazing sunrise. That what happened is this such an intense feeling of gratitude. It was literally this visceral experience of gratitude, and I finally understood what gratitude was. It has nothing to do with having grateful thoughts. It has to do with living in this intense energy of gratitude, and it completely changed my life. And once I learned how to see my life with gratitude, everything started to change.
That's really amazing. Absolutely. And it's amazing how you put it forth in the book and explain why and carry the reader through step by step. The practice of forgiveness was your second topic.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose that? And how does it apply?
Well, I call it the F word.
Oh dear, we're in trouble already. I guess forgiveness comes across like that to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's that hard.
Yeah. It's really, really difficult for people because they really don't understand what it is. We have this misconception that forgiveness means letting people off the hook for hurting us, or that it means just pretending that what happened to us didn't hurt, or sweeping it under the rug and pretending it never happened,
right?
Or we just have to let it go.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, it is not okay with me that other people hurt me. Forgiveness isn't about letting them off the hook. Forgiveness is actually another F word, which is freedom. And when we understand what freedom really is, it allows us to no longer carry the burden and the responsibility of other people's actions. Because what happens until we learn what forgiveness really is that we carry a disease called blame, and it literally destroys us. And as long as we are carrying the responsibility for the actions that other people placed on us, we are a disease. It causes tremendous out of balance dis-ease in every aspect of our life. And once we forgive other people for what they did, which doesn't mean necessarily forgiving them as much as just choosing to no longer carry those negative energies, no longer carry responsibility for other people's actions, and it frees us up from what other people did. That's their stuff. It's no longer my stuff. And the other aspect of forgiveness is learning how to forgive ourselves, because most of us walk around with a tremendous amount of shame that is completely irrational. Self-forgiveness is huge in transforming our lives.
I love that part of the book. I really love that, because most of us just beat ourselves up for not knowing what we didn't know, for not being perfect. And the voice in our head that starts it out isn't ours. Tell us how that happens.
Well, what happens to a lot of us when we're kids is that, especially for those of us who were raised in really authoritarian environments, is that we're told that we're bad, or that we've made bad choices, that we've sinned. And a lot of times we don't even know what we've done. We just know that we're bad kids. And when something bad happens to us, that somehow we're responsible for other people doing bad things to us. And so what happens is that our mind can't tell the difference between what is and isn't real when we're small. So what other people tell us becomes our reality, and we just regurgitate what other people have told us about who we are based on someone else's perception, and we just regurgitate that over and over and over again as if it were real, and it's really not. It's just it's someone else's perception that we've bought into. Or it's a belief that we created to protect ourselves.
Or the link that we created to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is we need to forgive ourselves for our ignorance.
Correct.
And realize that we're human, and in the process forgive other people for their ignorance, recognize it for what it is, and move on.
Yeah.
Free.
It's all about freedom.
All about freedom. You said, embrace the struggle.
Well, I like to use the story of the butterfly, in that in order for a butterfly to fly, it actually has to go through the struggle to come out of the cocoon. If the butterfly doesn't have the struggle, it actually can't fly.
And if it doesn't struggle to get out of the cocoon, it isn't strong enough to fly.
It isn't strong enough to fly. Yeah. So when we learn how to understand, and when we learn how to look at the struggles in our life as learning experiences instead of viewing them as failures, it's a matter of just completely changing our perception of our experiences, because ultimately the only ones that are in control of our lives, we are the creators of our life, but the only one that's in control of it is us, and we are the only ones that control our perception. So we could take a story, the story of our life, take that same story, and instead of looking at it from a victim perspective, look at it from an empowering perspective, same story, different perspective, and turn the story into something that strengthens us, and that empowers us, and it gives us wings.
In other words, take the challenge and know that it is a challenge and not a threat, and rise to the occasion.
Right. Instead of seeing ourselves as victims, we can become the heroes in our own life.
So that's another way of saying that for everything that goes wrong in life, there's a lesson to be learned and strength to be gained.
Correct. From every single thing in our life, there's a lesson. It's up to us to find out what it is, so that we don't make the same mistake again, quite honestly. But seriously enough, if we don't learn the lesson the first time, yeah.
You said, believe in you.
This one was something that I really, really struggled with, and I know a lot of other kids with similar backgrounds did. I was taught from a very young child that it was not okay to believe in myself. It was not okay to have any feelings of pride in myself, because I thought that pride was arrogance, and not realizing that pride actually is self-respect. And so in all of these things I had done in my life and all of these accomplishments, so I actually had been quite successful. I could never allow myself to see my own success, because I felt guilty for having any thoughts of success or ever allowing myself to see myself as genuinely successful, because of the way I was raised, that it was wrong and bad and prideful to have any positive feelings about myself.
So self-respect in and of itself was considered prideful.
Hang on. Jacqueline?
Explain the difference between self-confidence and pride.
Self-confidence is actually, a lot of these self-words have been misconstrued. Self-confidence is the ability to confide in oneself. There isn't any arrogance in that at all. It has to do with learning to trust yourself and having confidence in yourself.
And yet, when you were a child, to have confidence in yourself was treated as it were prideful and sinful.
Right.
So self-confidence was to be destroyed?
Right.
It literally was.
It was destroyed. Yeah. My self-confidence never existed. It was never there to begin with.
And in your book you write, take control. Those are strong words for a woman with no self-confidence.
Yeah. So for me, it's interesting because the opposite of what a lot of self-help books talk about is the opposite of let go and allow, which is the opposite of taking control. But for someone who has never had any control in her life, taking control was huge for me, because I was raised with the belief that my life was out of my control, that everyone else controlled my life. God had my life all planned out, that I had absolutely nothing to do with the direction of my life. And so for me, my life had always just been chaos, because I didn't know how to control it. And so learning how to control my emotions, which is a big part of it, understanding that I am the one who controls my emotions, not anybody else. No one else can make me feel the way that I do. My emotions and my responses are mine. And that's really what take control was. And once I learned how to control what I have, what I'm responsible for and what I'm feeling, then everything else in my life kind of fell into place. I no longer had to control the circumstances because I controlled myself. Then circumstances don't matter, because circumstances are a reflection of who I am.
That's extremely interesting, because we live in a world in general that says control or be controlled. Mm-hmm. Self-control has never been accepted as openly or even taught.
Ever. Anything has never been taught, quite honestly.
Right.
We weren't allowed to have a relationship with ourselves of any kind.
So once you began taking your life and saying, this is my life, my feelings, my emotion, my responsibility, I love what comes after that. You say, big capital letters, choose wisely.
Well, understanding what free will choice really is was huge for me, because I never understood what it really was. And we talk about the freedom of choice, but we really don't know. Most people have no idea what freedom of choice really is. And most people are actually unknowingly enslaved to other people's choices because they don't know how to consciously make choices.
And they assume that they need other people's acceptance so badly that they forfeit their own truth.
Right. Yeah. Because everyone, most people are so, they build their entire life based on other people's perceptions.
So you tell them, live in the present.
Oh, this was a good one.
Yes.
When I was a little girl, I was told that the idle mind is the devil's playground.
So you had to constantly be busy with your mind and not concentrating or meditating or contemplating the present.
Yeah, because something might get in. I might be inspired. And the other thing, when I talk about being present, is how I was raised with the belief that what happens here in this life is inconsequential, because what happens out there, possibly someday after I die, is what the plan really is. So we used to laugh at people who talk about being in the present moment. It's like, well, the present moment is irrelevant. It's what happens down in the future or after you die, which is where the focus was. I mean, it's like driving a car and your focus is so far down the road that you can't possibly see where you're going, and then you wonder why you keep hitting detours and pitfalls and bumps in the road, because the focus is so far out that you can't see where you're going. And being in the present allows us to see what's right in front of us and be here. Not that we're ignoring what might be out there. You set a goal for where you want to go, but you be in the present. This is where all creativity is. This is where all enlightenment is. This is where all happiness is. Happiness isn't someday. Happiness is here.
If a person's in the present, they're observant of the emotion, the cause and effect, and what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
If their mind is always busy, they're distracted from all that.
Mm-hmm. So the mind is always busy, either looking at the past and whining and complaining about the past, or so far down the future that they can't see clearly what's right in front of them.
So this is another concept of the old book, Be Here Now, as far as the concept of the title.
Yeah, there are several different ways of looking at it, but yeah, part of for me was that the way I was raised is that, like, literally mortality was the most inconsequential, because our focus was so far out that we couldn't even enjoy life.
And your book goes way beyond that as well.
Yeah.
Way, way beyond the book Be Here Now.
Yeah.
Because this book really takes you places if you just want to go. Great places in the mind and in the understanding. And changes people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
It is a life-changing book, literally. Build self-worth. So you get in the present, then build your self-worth. Comment on that.
Well, for me, a lot of that was going back and looking at my childhood and finding my gifts, because I didn't know that I had any. And what's really amazing is that if we take the time to start looking for our gifts, we were all born with them. Every one of us was born with a platter of gifts. And most of us were told, either by our religion or our parents or by society, not to follow our gifts. And in my case, my gifts were evil. So I was actually afraid of my gifts. But a lot of times it's kids, when kids are small, they know what they love, and then as they grow up, they start doing the shoulds, and they become what society or their parents or their religion or someone tells them they should be and what they should do, and they completely forget about their gifts because there's not enough money in it, or it's not logical. And the other thing that's interesting is that as I went back, I started looking at my gifts, because I was trying to figure out, okay, I was 40-something, and saying, okay, what do I want to be when I grow up? I was still trying to figure out what is it I wanted to be. So I went back into my childhood and started discovering that there were gifts in my childhood that I never knew I had. One of them was the gift of writing. Did not know I had the gift of writing until I went back and realized that I got A+ in language arts. And I remember that now. I was ace stellar, but I didn't recognize those as gifts. It was just school. The other thing that I found fascinating is that my natural propensities that were considered weaknesses when I was a child are actually my greatest strengths.
That's amazing, and I think that would be an amazing truth among many women.
Yeah.
Many natural, intuitive, emotional, and creative gifts that women have.
Well, I was told I was too loud and that I talked too much.
Now you got that
making money
talking. There
that was one of my gifts that I was told was a weakness, so I needed to shut it up because I talked too much. That I was too opinionated and that I was too loud.
Little did they know.
Yeah.
And you're on a roll.
Actually, one of my gifts.
It is one of your gifts.
Yeah.
It certainly is. You tell us to celebrate our accomplishments.
Celebrate, yeah. I mean, how many of us accomplish something? A lot of us we have our accomplishments and it's like, yeah, I did that. Because we never allow ourselves, how many of us really go, wow, I am so proud of myself? We don't.
Or even jump up and down and quietly say, I did it. Yes.
Yeah. We don't give ourselves that. We might high five our kids, but how many of us really do that for ourselves? You know, you made that phone call to a client and go grab yourself a glass of champagne. You know?
Exercise confidence.
Well, at the back of each one of my chapters is an actual exercise.
It is.
Yeah, there's an exercise in the back of each one of the chapters where I talk about how I exercise that particular part of my life currently.
That we have already talked about.
That we've already talked about. So at the end of gratitude, there's an exercise for exercising gratitude. So there's an exercise at the end of each one of these. And so I talk about how as a child I didn't know what it was, and now how I exercise it every day.
That's really great. That's really great. You tell us, follow our intuition. Most people won't admit they have any.
Well, because most people don't know they do.
Yes, because they think it's something wrong with them if they follow their gut feeling.
Well, if they admit they're hearing voices.
Well, you know, if it feels wrong, it usually is.
Yeah.
And if we could teach our children to pay attention to that, it would be a giant step forward.
Yeah. So we have the intellect, which is the voice in our head, and our intuition is feeling.
Right.
The difference is that the intellect, which is in our head, is masculine. The feeling, which is and science has actually proven that the gut has its own intelligence. Finally, this has been proven. That science actually calls it the second mind, and it is the feeling mind. This is actually it's in our creative center for a reason. So
right.
It's called the gut feeling, since it's actually the feminine energy of feeling. So if we learn to listen to that, which is the voice of wisdom, we all have an inner guidance system, and we learn to listen to that voice of wisdom, it will always, 100% of the time, lead us where we need to go.
When you carry us through the various chapters in your book, each one builds upon the other.
Mm-hmm.
And you tell us here to value our transitions, you tell us here to rediscover ourselves, and to ignore the critic.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we all got one.
So tell us a little bit of depth in ignoring the critic.
Well, the critic is, it's this voice that's in our head. I mean, we all kind of have the visual of, the angel on one side and the devil on the other side.
Right.
Or what I teach my kids is that there's a bully in our head. Don't listen to the bully, because she does not know what she's talking about.
Oh, that's great.
Would you listen to the bully at school?
Right.
Don't listen to the bully that's in your head. The bully that's in your head, if that voice in your head is saying anything that is less than loving, it is a lie.
That's
flat
marvelous.
out. And if it's belittling, if it's telling you that you don't deserve it, if it's telling you that you don't have enough whatever, if it's telling you don't have enough education, anything that is belittling at all is a lie. And that it's there. It's not that you turn it off completely, but you can turn it way down and just listen to it and analyze it and say, is this true? No, it's not. And then you can choose to forgive yourself for believing it.
That one concept of the bully in your head stops more people than any other one, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The degrading of oneself. Where does that start?
When we're really, really, really small.
And it starts with somebody else's voice, and when they quit picking on us, we take over.
Mm-hmm. We become our very worst enemy. Yeah. And I know, and the sad thing is that we take that enemy with us everywhere we go.
And if we could just get rid of that one particular aspect of those nasty replay tapes,
Mm-hmm.
how free we would be.
Mm-hmm.
And
Starts
how
to open
happy.
up. It actually starts to open up our heart.
Yeah. And then we march on when we've learned that lesson, and we connect with authenticity.
Yeah, authenticity took me a while to figure out what that is. It was one of the big buzzwords a couple of years ago. Everybody was talking about authenticity and what is it. And what it really is being true to one's self. And it means listening to that voice that's inside of you and being who you are, and not living your life by other people's expectations or other people's beliefs, because they don't make you who you are. It's just their perception. And the thing that's fascinating is every human being on this planet has a different perception. Every one of us sees things differently. Every one of us perceives things differently. Every one of us experiences things differently. There's absolutely no way we can possibly be something for everyone else. So why not just be it for ourselves? It's impossible to please everyone else.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And what happens is that we go through life pretending to be someone that we're really not. And as long as we're pretending to be someone that we're not, we are very unhappy.
The system which most of us grew up in is to conform, conform, conform. And conformity and authenticity seem to clash here.
Yes, we do.
They do.
Very much so. And the thing is that as long as you are not being authentic, if you're conforming instead of living in authenticity, it actually creates like a war going on inside of you.
If we find our authenticity, then we're going to be discovering who we really are.
Correct.
And what we believe in and what we care about, which means that we're going to find our purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the beginning of living life on purpose?
Yes, it is.
So you're opening up the gates for the deliberate intention of living your life as you really want to.
Yes, it's a deliberate creation of your life.
And this book carries you through step by step to live your life on purpose.